All right, today we are diving deep into an incredibly powerful story. It's about love, about loss, and a kind of sacrifice that honestly is hard to even imagine. This is the Ashes of Ruth's Devotion.
I want to start with a question, and it's a heavy one, but it's really at the heart of everything we're about to explore. When does being devoted to someone cross the line into destroying yourself? Just keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this.
So, let's get into it. Like any story, this one has a beginning. And it starts with a love that was once simple and good, right before something came along and poisoned it. Let's meet our main characters, Peter and Ruth, and see where it all started to go so horribly wrong.
Okay, so picture this. Their life was anything but fancy. Ruth would sell firewood. Peter would do any odd job he could find. They didn't have much money, not at all, but they were honest, they had each other, and you know what? That was enough. For a while, anyway.
But then Peter changed. And I mean, he really changed. He got mixed up with this guy, a so-called holy man, but instead of finding enlightenment, he found addiction. The strong, hard-working guy on the left, he just disappeared. He was replaced by this lazy dreamer on the right, a man who preferred illusions over reality. And this was his escape, right? The drugs became his own personal heaven, which meant his actual home, his life with Ruth, started to feel like a prison, just a place of hunger and work. His devotion completely shifted. It wasn't to his wife anymore. It was to the pipe. It was to chasing that fake, fleeting sense of peace.
So with Peter completely lost in his addiction, you can imagine things at home were already getting pretty bad. But then a new person enters the picture, and that simmering conflict, it's about to erupt into a full-blown fire.
Can you even imagine the heartbreak for Ruth? She, rightfully, refused to give him money for his habit. So Peter storms out, and when he comes back, he's not alone. He brings another woman, a younger woman named Clara, right into their home, basically shattering the last little bit of the life they had together. And just like that, a silent war starts inside this tiny hut. On one side, you've got Ruth, offering her quiet, steady loyalty, but refusing to fuel his addiction. And on the other, you have Clara. She was, well, more profitable. She worked harder, she earned more, and crucially, she gave Peter the money he wanted for drugs. In his mind, it was no contest. His favor was easily bought.
While that silent war didn't stay silent for long, it finally exploded into awful, open violence over something so small, an argument about some stolen grass. Peter, drunk and full of rage, brutally beat Ruth, the woman who had always stood by him. And Clara, she just stood there and watched. That was the last straw. That night, Ruth was gone.
All right, so this is where the story hits its absolute climax. Ruth has vanished. Peter's on his own, but a night of sheer terror is about to unfold, and it's going to lead to one final, almost unbelievable act of love.
Peter was working as a watchman in the field, sleeping in a little hut out there. He wakes up in the middle of the night, not to the quiet of the countryside, but to the roar of flames. The hut, his own shelter, is burning down around him.
And this was way more serious than just his little hut. The fire was spreading and spreading fast, right toward the village's harvest. All those dry crops. If the fire got to them, the entire village would lose everything. Their whole livelihood would literally go up in smoke.
In this moment of crazy, desperate clarity, Peter does something you'd think is impossible. To stop the fire from spreading to the crops, he lifts the entire burning hut onto his shoulders to carry it away. I mean, fire is literally searing his skin, but he just keeps going, trying to save the village.
And just as he's about to collapse, his strength completely gone, the burning weight about to crush him, a figure runs out of the darkness. It was Ruth. She'd come back, and in one final selfless act, she gets under that burning hut and takes the weight off of him, saving the man who had completely destroyed her. It was just an unbelievable act of sacrifice, but it came at the most devastating cost imaginable. Now we have to look at the tragic fallout from that night. She just wasn't strong enough to hold that weight for long. As Peter stumbled to safety, the structure collapsed, and the flames, they just consumed her. Her ultimate act of love was her last. She died, saving him and saving the village he had put in danger. So Peter was saved from the fire, physically, but he could never be saved from what he'd done. The crushing weight of his own cruelty and the sheer power of her unconditional love. It was just too much for him to live with. His body survived the burns, but his heart was shattered. A few days later, he died from pure grief. Wow. So after all that fire, all that heartbreak, what are we supposed to do with a story like this? What can a tragedy this immense really teach us?
Because really, this isn't just about Peter or Ruth or some village. The names, the places, they could be anywhere. This story is like a mirror, and it reflects some of the deepest, most complicated parts of being human.
When you strip it all down, that's what it's about. It's about human weakness, right? The weakness of addiction. It's about greed, the greed for an easy escape. And then it's about these incredible forces of loyalty and ultimately sacrifice.
In the end, this whole massive tragedy really just boils down to a few key choices. Peter chose the illusion of pleasure over his real responsibilities. Clara chose the little bit of power she could get over simple kindness. And Ruth, well, Ruth made the most heartbreaking choice of all. She chose her love for a broken man over her own life.
And that brings us right back to where we started. After everything we've just seen, after watching Ruth's final act, you have to ask it again. What is the true cost of devotion? And is that a price anyone should ever have to pay?